Captain Maya Torres stood at the helm of her family's shipping warehouse, watching the morning fog roll across Seattle's industrial waterfront. The salt-stained windows of the 80-year-old building framed a view her grandfather had defended during the Depression, her father during the recession of the 80s. Now it was her turn. The coffee in her thermos had gone cold hours ago. Maya had been reviewing manifests since 4 a.m., her Navy training making early mornings feel natural. 8 years as a logistics officer in the Pacific Fleet had taught her precision, patience, and how to spot trouble before it arrived. Her Aunt Sophia shuffled into the office, carrying a fresh pot of coffee and wearing the same worried expression she'd had for weeks. At 68, Sophia still handled the books with the same sharp mind that had kept Torres shipping afloat through 3 generations of challenges. More citations came, Sophia said quietly, setting down a stack of official envelopes. Port Authority, Fire Marshal, Environmental Compliance. All dated yesterday. Maya opened them methodically. Each violation was trivial: a railing needing paint, paperwork filed in the wrong format, storage containers positioned 6 inches off regulation. Individually, they were nuisances. Together, they formed a pattern. That makes 15 this month, Maya said. All from departments where Commissioner Blake has connections. The roar of engines made them both look up. 3 black SUVs rolled through the gate that shouldn't have been unlocked. Maya's hand moved instinctively to where her sidearm used to rest, before remembering she was a civilian now. Men poured out wearing construction vests and hard hats, but moving with the coordinated aggression of a street gang. They carried bolt cutters, spray paint, and sledgehammers. Sophia, the safe room. Now. Her aunt didn't argue. Years of living on the waterfront had taught her when to question and when to move. Maya grabbed her tablet and activated the security system she'd installed last month, military-grade cameras with cloud backup and facial recognition. Then she stepped outside, positioning herself on the loading platform that gave her the high ground. "This is private property," she called down. "You have 10 seconds to leave." Laughter erupted from the group. A man stepped forward, pulling off his hard hat to reveal a face Maya recognized from the Port Commission meetings. Jason Blake, the commissioner's son, barely 25 and already drunk on family power. "Private property?" Jason's voice dripped with mockery. "Not for long, sweetheart. Daddy's got plans for this prime waterfront real estate. Why don't you make it easy?" And Maya's first shot cracked through the air. The bullet punched through the engine block of the lead SUV with surgical precision. Steam erupted as coolant sprayed across the pavement. The men scattered, diving behind vehicles. Jason's cocky smile evaporated. "That was your warning," Maya announced, her voice carrying the same tone she'd used directing cargo operations. "Next time I won't aim for the engine." A second man raised a crowbar toward the warehouse windows. Maya's second shot struck the concrete at his feet, chips of stone peppering his legs. He stumbled backward, dropping his weapon. "You can't shoot all of us," someone shouted, but his voice wavered. Maya adjusted her scope. "Want to test that theory?" More vehicles appeared on the access road, neighbors arriving. Word traveled fast in the waterfront community. Within minutes, dockworkers, fishermen, and warehouse operators formed a loose perimeter, phones raised and recording. Jason Blake pulled out his phone, and Maya knew who he was calling. This was only the beginning. The hearing room at City Hall reeked of old wood and older corruption. Maya sat ramrod straight in her pressed blazer, the same one she'd worn for her Navy commendation ceremony. Beside her, Sophia clutched a folder of business licenses and tax records going back to 1945. Commissioner Vincent Blake held court at the center table, his silver hair perfectly styled, his suit tailored to broadcast power. Jason sat beside him, sporting fresh bandages that Maya suspected were more theater than injury. "This hearing addresses serious allegations of assault and reckless endangerment," Blake began, his voice smooth as polished brass. "Yesterday, Maya Torres fired upon citizens engaged in legitimate port inspection activities." Murmurs rippled through the packed room. Maya's hands remained folded on the table, but her eyes tracked every person, every exit, every camera angle. Jason limped to the witness stand, wincing dramatically. "We were just doing our jobs, checking structural integrity per port regulations." Then she opened fire without warning. "I barely escaped with my life." Maya started to rise, but Father Michael Chin, the waterfront chaplain, touched her arm. "Wait for your turn," he whispered. "We have evidence." Blake called witness after witness, all connected to his real estate empire, all telling variations of the same rehearsed story. Maya Torres was unstable, dangerous, a veteran who couldn't adjust to civilian life. Given her military background and clear instability, Blake concluded, "We move to immediately suspend Torres Shipping's operating license and initiate eminent domain proceedings for public safety." "Commissioner Chen?" The hearing officer nodded toward Father Michael. The chaplain stood, his clerical collar stark white against his black shirt. Ms. Torres has evidence that tells a different story. Maya connected her tablet to the projection screen. Crystal clear footage played, masked men with weapons, coordinated assault, Jason Blake giving orders. The audio caught every threat, every slur designed to provoke. Blake's face reddened. This footage could be manipulated, timestamped and verified by 3 independent security firms, Father Michael interrupted. Along with police reports from 6 other waterfront businesses experiencing similar harassment. All owned by minority families. All standing between your development plans and waterfront access. The hearing officer studied the footage, her expression hardening. Motion to suspend denied. Furthermore, I'm referring this matter to the State Attorney General for investigation into possible civil rights violations. Outside the courthouse, a crowd erupted in cheers. Maya descended the steps to find dozens of supporters, dock workers in their union jackets, fishermen still smelling of the sea, small business owners who'd been fighting similar battles. Investigative journalist David Park pushed through the crowd, his camera operator trailing behind. Maya, can you comment on reports that Blake's Maritime Development Foundation has been systematically targeting minority-owned waterfront businesses? I can comment that someone needs to look at the pattern, Maya replied. 6 businesses harassed in 3 months. All owned by Asian, Latino, or Black families. All refusing to sell to shell companies that trace back to the same source. That night, Sophia cooked Maya's favorite meal, Abuela's arroz con pollo, the recipe that had fed 3 generations of Torres family gatherings. But Maya barely tasted it. She stood at the warehouse window, watching patrol cars circle like sharks. They'd won the hearing, but Blake had resources she could only guess at. And men like him didn't accept defeat gracefully. The public library's fluorescent lights hummed overhead as David Park spread documents across a study table. Beside him, Rosa Martinez, 20 years as a city records clerk, methodically worked through property transfers, her reading glasses perched on her nose. Look at this pattern, Rosa whispered, sliding a deed across the table. Same notary on all these waterfront transfers, but the dates overlap. She couldn't have been in 3 places simultaneously. David leaned in, photographing the document. And these LLC names: Pacific Harbor Holdings, Coastal Development Group, Maritime Future Enterprises. All registered within a 2-week period. Same law firm. They'd been working for 3 days, piecing together Blake's empire. Every surface held evidence, tax records, incorporation papers, foreclosure notices. Each document represented a family's loss. Here's the connection, Rosa said, pulling up a spreadsheet on her laptop. Every foreclosure was preceded by sudden violations from departments where Blake has appointees. Always on Friday afternoons, giving families minimal time to respond before Monday court hearings. Father Michael sat nearby, recording testimonies from elderly community members. His digital recorder captured stories of lands lost, businesses destroyed, generations of work undone by suspicious paperwork and coordinated harassment. They came saying our permits had expired, Mrs. Chen, an 82-year-old former restaurant owner, recalled, her hands trembling over a faded photo of her family's establishment. But we'd renewed them the month before. By the time we proved it in court, they'd already leased the property to one of those companies. David's fingers flew across his keyboard, connecting threads. Blake's foundation receives millions in economic development grants. But look where that money goes: straight into these shell companies buying foreclosed properties at pennies on the dollar. Rosa nodded grimly. And every company's bank account traces back to Pacific First Bank, where Commissioner Blake's brother sits on the board. Father Michael moved between tables, offering encouragement and collecting more stories. Each elder's testimony added another layer to the pattern of theft disguised as progress. The Port Authority would show up for random inspections right before fishing season, Mr. Nguyen explained, his weathered face tight with memory. Find violations that needed immediate fixing. Cost us tens of thousands we didn't have. David pulled up emails obtained through public records requests. Look at this exchange between Blake and his son, target properties identified. Proceeding with Phase 1 pressure tactics. Set 3 days before the first wave of citations hit minority-owned businesses. More documents revealed careful coordination. Health department violations appeared just as loan payments came due. Operating licenses suddenly needed review when owners refused to sell. Each piece showed how the system had been weaponized. They didn't just take property, Father Michael said, reviewing his recordings. They took heritage. Every business lost means children with no legacy to inherit, no foothold in the community their grandparents built. Rosa discovered the shell game in the property transfers. See how deeds move between companies? By the time a family challenges one transfer, the property's been sold 3 more times. Makes it nearly impossible to track. As the library's closing announcement echoed, they worked on. David organized evidence into clear timelines. Rosa certified copies of key documents. Father Michael transcribed testimonies that brought cold facts to breathing life. Complete chain of evidence, David finally announced. Foundation funnels grant money to shell companies. Companies target businesses through coordinated harassment. Port Authority provides enforcement muscle. Properties get flipped to developers. Every step documented. That evening, Maya sat at her warehouse office desk, uploading scanned documents to encrypted servers. Each deed, email, and testimony built a fortress of evidence against those who thought they could steal with impunity. Sophia watched from the doorway as Maya worked, her attention focused on each page feeding through the scanner. The office clock ticked steadily, marking time as years of corruption were exposed one sheet at a time. Your father would be proud, Sophia said softly, setting fresh coffee beside her niece. He always said the truth was like the tide, it finds its way in no matter what barriers you build. Maya nodded, continuing to scan. The digital files grew into mountains of facts, dates, and signatures. Each page added weight to their case, turning suspicions into certainties. Finally, she clicked submit on the federal complaint. The computer hummed as hundreds of pages flowed through secure channels to the U.S. Attorney's office. Maya sat back, her jaw set with determination. Dark clouds rolled in from Puget Sound, turning the evening sky an ominous gray-green. The air felt charged with electricity that made Maya's skin prickle. She double-checked the windows, making sure everything was secured for the coming storm. Inside the warehouse office, Sophia worked with practiced efficiency, the counter covered with inventory manifests and shipping schedules. The steady rhythm of her work punctuated her humming, an old song their family used to sing. Storm's coming in fast, Maya said, helping her aunt organize papers into waterproof containers. Weather Service says possible flooding. But these contracts won't wait. Sophia's hands moved steadily, never missing a beat. Your father always said storm weather was best for paperwork. Something about the pressure in the air helping you focus. Thunder rolled overhead, closer now. Rain began hammering the metal roof, a familiar drumbeat that usually brought comfort. But tonight, something felt wrong. The wind was too aggressive, too deliberate. Maya paced between windows, checking sight lines through the worsening weather. Lightning flashed, illuminating the dock area in stark bursts. Their newest cargo container sat near the water's edge, filled with specialized equipment. A flash of movement caught her eye, shadows moving where they shouldn't be. Maya grabbed her rifle, but another lightning strike showed only empty space. The rain was coming down in sheets now, reducing visibility to almost nothing. Sophia's humming continued, a calm counterpoint to the storm's fury. Hand me that binder, Mija. These last few invoices. The smell hit them first. Sharp, chemical, wrong. Then orange light bloomed through the rain, fire consuming the cargo container despite the downpour. Fire. Maya was moving before the word fully left her mouth. She sprinted through the rain, Sophia right behind her. The heat hit like a physical wall as they got closer. Inside the container, she could hear equipment crashing, expensive gear being destroyed. But worse, she could smell gasoline. This was arson. Maya kicked open the container door, smoke billowing out. The fire was everywhere, spreading impossibly fast. Through the flames, she saw what they'd really targeted: her military records, family documents, deed to the property. Everything stored in waterproof boxes that weren't so waterproof against accelerant. Sophia pushed past her, heading for a metal filing cabinet in the back. The original deed. We need a support beam, groaned ominously. Maya grabbed for her aunt but missed. The beam crashed down, sending up a shower of sparks. She plunged into the smoke, half dragging Sophia while trying to reach the cabinet. The door seemed miles away. Sophia was coughing, struggling to breathe. Maya's lungs burned, but her training kicked in. Low crawl, preserve oxygen, keep moving. Headlights cut through the rain. Neighbors arriving, drawn by the fire's glow. Father Michael's van skidded to a stop. He and David Park ran to help, taking Sophia's other side as Maya pulled them clear. Sophia's coughing worsened, her lips taking on a bluish tinge that terrified Maya. Someone had called 911. She could hear sirens in the distance. More neighbors arrived with extinguishers and hoses, forming a line to protect the main warehouse, but the container was already lost. The ambulance arrived first, paramedics quickly loading Sophia inside. Maya wanted to go with her, but there was too much to handle. Father Michael squeezed her shoulder. I'll ride with her. You take care of things here. The fire trucks came next, but too late to save anything in the container. They contained the blaze, keeping it from spreading, but that was all. Maya answered their questions mechanically, describing how fast the fire spread, the smell of accelerant. They nodded grimly, taking notes about possible arson. Dawn broke gray and miserable. The rain had finally stopped, leaving everything slick and dripping. The container was a blackened shell, still smoking. Maya sat in the ashes, her rifle across her lap, staring at the twisted remains of equipment and family history reduced to char. Her phone buzzed, the insurance company responding to her emergency claim. Denied. Pre-existing structural issues. No coverage for suspected arson. Father Michael had texted updates through the night. Sophia was stable, being treated for smoke inhalation. They wanted to keep her for observation. The equipment could be replaced. But family documents, 3 generations of Torres history, were gone. Maya's hands tightened on her rifle. The container had stood for 2 decades. Her father had maintained it carefully. And now? She touched the ashes, letting them stain her fingers black. This wasn't just about property destruction. They'd tried to kill her aunt. They'd tried to erase her family's proof of ownership. More messages came in, neighbors offering help, storage space, equipment. The community's support should have been comforting, but Maya barely registered it. She was focused on the tire tracks leading away from the container, already half washed away by rain. She stood slowly, muscles stiff from sitting in the wet ashes. The morning sun tried to break through clouds, casting weak light over the destruction. Maya didn't move, her rifle ready across her lap, keeping watch as the waterfront came alive with normal morning sounds. But nothing about this morning was normal. Nothing would be normal again until she ended this one way or another. The hospital room was too quiet, broken only by the steady beep of monitors and Sophia's labored breathing. Maya sat beside the bed, her hands clasped around her aunt's weathered fingers. The doctor said Sophia was improving, but seeing her like this small and fragile against white sheets made Maya's chest ache. Mija, Sophia's voice was rough from coughing. There's something in my desk you need to get. Bottom drawer, locked compartment. Combination is your father's birthday. Maya started to protest, not wanting to leave, but Sophia squeezed her hand. Go on now. Bring it back here. At the warehouse office, Maya found the compartment exactly where Sophia said. Inside were dozens of letters, carefully preserved. Many bore Navy postmarks and deployment stamps. She recognized the return addresses members of her old logistics unit, ships she'd served on back at the hospital. Sophia was sitting up straighter, some color returned to her cheeks. Read them, she said, nodding at the letters. I saved every one while you were deployed. Maya pulled out the first letter, postmarked 7 years ago. The paper was creased from multiple readings, the ink slightly faded. Ma'am, she read aloud. Your niece saved our entire supply operation today. We were caught in a coordination nightmare, 3 ships with conflicting orders. Captain Torres stayed calm, reorganized everything on the fly. Because of her, we made our delivery window. The mission succeeded. Another letter, Torres is the best logistics officer I've ever worked with. Her attention to detail, her ability to see patterns others miss, it's remarkable. We call her the compass because she always finds the right direction. And another, we were ready to give up on that damaged shipment. Captain Torres found a solution nobody else saw. She thinks 3 steps ahead, every time. Sophia watched Maya's face as she read. You were always special, Mija. These people saw it too. That's why those criminals can't beat you. They don't know who they're dealing with. A knock interrupted them. Father Michael entered, followed by a stream of neighbors bearing food containers and cards. The small room quickly filled with familiar faces and comforting smells. Sister Sophia, Father Michael's voice carried the weight of Sunday sermons. They meant that fire to break us. But fire purifies. Fire proves what's genuine. He gripped Sophia's hand. They burned your container because they fear what you represent, generations of immigrant families refusing to be moved. David Park set down his camera bag. We've been organizing. Community watch schedules, documentation protocols. And I've got media contacts ready to cover whatever happens next. Rosa added, legal aid lawyers are offering pro bono help to every family they've targeted. Your stand opened the floodgates. Maya felt something tight in her chest begin to loosen. The letters from her unit, her community's unwavering support, it all crystallized into clear purpose. That evening, after ensuring Sophia was comfortable for the night, Maya walked her property with new eyes. She saw it as she'd once viewed supply routes and logistics hubs, analyzing vulnerabilities, identifying critical points, planning coverage. The burned container had opened new sightlines she could use. She worked through the night setting up motion-triggered lights disguised as security floods. Silent alarms connected to her phone. Each approach to the warehouse now had coverage from multiple angles. Near dawn, Father Michael arrived with coffee and breakfast sandwiches. He watched Maya check security camera feeds on her laptop. You're not just protecting your business anymore, he said quietly. You're standing for everyone they've pushed out. Everyone they plan to push out. Maya nodded, making final adjustments to a motion sensor. I know. That's why it has to end here. Throughout the day, more neighbors came to help. They repaired damage from the fire, cleared debris, and helped Maya strengthen her defenses while making them look like normal warehouse operations. Every delivery of food or supplies came with offers of support, with quiet promises to stand witness when Blake's forces returned. As dusk approached, Maya climbed to her observation position, a reinforced platform on the warehouse's roof. Through her scope, she could see the entire waterfront, every approach road, every access point. The sun dipped lower, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Maya settled into position, her breathing slow and steady. Her scope swept the perimeter in practiced patterns. Everything was ready. "Come then," she whispered, her voice carrying the same calm certainty she'd had directing operations. The darkness deepened, but Maya remained still, waiting. She was exactly where she needed to be. The morning sun streamed through the warehouse windows, casting long shadows across the concrete floor. David Park sat hunched over his laptop at a folding table, checking encrypted messages every few minutes. The investigative team had thinned out, leaving only a few dedicated researchers poring over final documents. The door opened. A woman in a rumpled business suit walked in, her eyes darting around before settling on David. He recognized her from her profile picture, Jennifer, the IT contractor who'd reached out through his secure messaging system. "You must be the journalist," she said, sliding into a chair across from him. Her hands shook slightly as she placed her messenger bag on the table. "Thanks for meeting me." "Coffee?" David offered. She shook her head. "I can't stay long. What I'm about to give you could cost me everything. Maybe worse." "I understand. My source protection is solid. No one will trace this back to you." Jennifer pulled out a thumb drive, holding it under the table. For years of emails between Commissioner Blake and his development partners. Internal memos, financial transfers, everything. "I was doing routine server maintenance when I found the backup folder they thought they'd deleted." David took the drive, slipping it into his pocket. "What made you decide to come forward?" "My parents lost their business in '08. Same pattern: sudden violations, impossible deadlines, harassment. When I saw these emails..." She swallowed hard. "History's repeating itself. Someone needs to stop it." He nodded, sliding her a burner phone. "If you think of anything else, use this. Once only, then destroy it." After Jennifer left, David drove straight to Rosa's house. She was already waiting in her home office, surrounded by property records and legal documents. "Show me what you got," Rosa said, clearing space on her desk. David plugged in the thumb drive. Hundreds of emails populated the screen. They started reading, their expressions growing darker with each message. "Look at this one," David pointed. Blake to his son, "Once the Torres property is cleared, we can begin phase 3. The investors are getting impatient." Rosa pulled up zoning maps on her computer. "Phase 3 here. All these parcels marked in red. Every single one minority-owned waterfront businesses." They spent hours cross-referencing emails with property records. A clear pattern emerged. Blake's foundation would identify target properties. Then the Port Authority would find ways to pressure the owners' bogus violations, suspended licenses, arbitrary fines. When owners couldn't pay, shell companies would swoop in with lowball offers. "This is systematic theft," Rosa muttered, printing another document. "They've been planning this for over 5 years." David's phone buzzed a message from his editor. The warehouse fire story was going viral. Comments poured in from across the country, many sharing similar experiences with development schemes disguised as progress. "We need to get this to federal prosecutors," David said. "But it has to be airtight. One mistake and Blake's lawyers will shred it." Rosa pulled out fresh accordion files. "I'll certify copies of everything. Property records, violation notices, licensing documents. My notary stamp makes them legally admissible." They worked through lunch, organizing evidence chronologically. David wrote a detailed timeline linking each email to corresponding official actions. Rosa added affidavits from other business owners who'd been targeted. By late afternoon, they had assembled a comprehensive dossier. Rosa sealed each section with official stamps, her hands steady despite the risk she was taking. 23 years in city records," she said quietly. "Watched good people lose everything because the system was rigged. Not this time." They drove to the warehouse as the sun was setting. The waterfront was busy with neighbors helping repair fire damage, their vehicles filling the parking area. Maya met them at the door, her rifle never far from reach. Dark circles under her eyes suggested she hadn't slept much since the fire. "Show me," she said, leading them to the office. At the desk, they laid out the evidence. Maya read each page carefully, her expression hardening as she saw the scope of the conspiracy. Emails discussing Sophia by name, plans to make an example of their resistance. "Look at the dates," David pointed out. They started targeting your operating license months before the first raid. The violence was Plan B. All legal on paper, Rosa added. That's how they've gotten away with it so long. But these emails prove criminal conspiracy. Maya spread the papers across the desk, arranging them like she might plan a logistics operation. How many copies? 3, David said. 1 for the U.S. Attorney's Office, 1 for my editor's safe, 1 for your records. My contact at the federal prosecutor's office is ready to move, Rosa said. But they need everything perfect. One procedural mistake and Blake's lawyers will destroy it. Maya picked up the main envelope, feeling its weight. All those lives, all that pain reduced to papers and printouts. But paper could cut. Paper could burn hot enough to bring down empires. She pressed her family's seal into the red wax Rosa had brought, marking the envelope officially closed. The wax gleamed in the office light like a promise. The truth burns brighter than their fire, Maya said, handing the envelope back to Rosa. Night fell over the waterfront like a curtain. Hundreds of small lights flickered in the darkness as neighbors gathered, holding candles and phones that pushed back against the gloom. The vigil organized by Father Michael had drawn people from across the city, all standing shoulder to shoulder in solidarity. David adjusted the last camera mounted on the warehouse wall, giving Maya a thumbs up. Live feeds running smooth. Thousands watching already. From her position on the warehouse roof, Maya checked her rifle one final time. The familiar weight settled against her shoulder as she peered through the scope, scanning the perimeter. Motion sensors and cameras created an invisible web across her property. Nothing would move without her knowing. Inside the office, Sophia knelt in prayer, her Bible open on the desk. Candlelight caught the silver in her hair as she whispered familiar verses. The gathering crowd outside sang hymns that drifted through the windows, backing her words with harmony. Keep my knees safe, she prayed. Keep her hands steady and her heart strong. Maya's voice crackled over David's radio. Movement on Harbor Road. Multiple vehicles. The singing stopped. Phone cameras swiveled toward the darkness. The rumble of heavy engines shattered the night's peace. Headlights pierced the gloom, a convoy of trucks leading 2 massive excavators. The machines crawled forward like yellow monsters, their paint dulled by grime. This is a peaceful vigil, Father Michael's voice rang out, amplified by speakers. We are gathered in prayer and witness. The excavators didn't slow. Their engines roared as they approached the property line. Maya's scope settled on the lead machine's hydraulic system, clearly visible in her night vision. She took a slow breath, held it. The first shot cracked through the air like thunder. The excavator's hydraulic line erupted in a spray of fluid. The machine lurched, its arm dropping uselessly as the system failed. Shouts erupted from the attackers. Flashlight beams swept wildly, trying to locate the shooter. Maya was already shifting her aim to the second excavator. Another shot, precise, controlled. The second machine's fuel line split, diesel spraying across its tracks. The operator abandoned the cab, scrambling for cover. My God, someone whispered in the crowd. Phones captured everything, streaming Maya's masterful precision to thousands of viewers. The attackers regrouped, pulling out their own weapons. A drone buzzed overhead, its camera seeking Maya's position. She tracked it through her scope, leading its flight path slightly. The shot took the drone clean out of the sky. It spiraled down trailing sparks, crashing into the pavement. The crowd gasped. Comments flooded the live streams, military precision. She's defending her family's business. This is what resistance looks like. Commissioner Blake's voice boomed through a megaphone. Maya Torres, you are interfering with legitimate Port Authority business. Maya's response was to shoot out his vehicle's spotlight, plunging him into darkness. The glass shattered against the hood, more vehicles tried to push forward. Maya picked them off methodically, radiators, tires, engine blocks. Each shot rang with purpose, demonstrating control. No one was hit, but every bullet sent a clear message: you will not take this property. The attackers' confidence cracked. Some broke for their trucks, retreating into the night. Others huddled behind disabled vehicles, unwilling to advance against an unseen marksman. Blake's face twisted with rage. All units, move in now. Port Authority officers hesitated, looking at the disabled vehicles and the growing online audience. Before they could decide, new lights appeared, red and blue strobes accompanied by sirens. Federal agents. A voice thundered through professional-grade speakers. Everyone freeze. This is the FBI. Black SUVs roared onto the scene, agents in tactical gear pouring out, weapons raised. The crowd parted to let them through, phones recording every second. Vincent Blake, an agent in a suit, stepped forward, holding up credentials. You're under arrest for racketeering, civil rights violations, and conspiracy to commit fraud. 2 agents grabbed Blake before he could reach his phone. They cuffed him as he sputtered threats and denials. The live stream caught his face as the cuffs clicked shut, defeat and fury warring in his eyes. Jason tried to run but didn't make it 3 steps before agents tackled him. He went down screaming about his father's connections. His bravado finally shattered. More arrests followed systematically. Port Authority officials, development company executives, bank officers, all led to separate vehicles as federal agents read them their rights. The crowd erupted in cheers as the conspirators were loaded into FBI vehicles. Phones captured every moment, the corrupt commissioner ducking into a car, his son crying as he was driven away, the officials' smooth facades finally cracking. Maya watched it all through her scope, finger still on the trigger. She wouldn't relax until the last federal vehicle cleared her property. Years of Navy training had taught her that victory wasn't complete until the operation was secured. Father Michael's voice rose above the chaos. Let justice roll down like waters, and righteousness like a mighty stream. The crowd took up the chant, candles lifted higher, phones streaming light into the darkness. On screens across the country, viewers watched justice arrive at last on the Seattle waterfront. Weeks passed like tides changing, steady, inevitable, full of renewal. The new cargo container stood proud against the autumn sky, reinforced steel gleaming in the afternoon light. Community hands had helped install it in just 2 days, the work punctuated by shared meals and laughter. Sophia sat in her favorite chair on the office porch, a laptop on her lap, her fingers moving across the keyboard with practiced grace. She was writing the family history, every generation, every struggle, preserving what fire couldn't destroy. Maya stepped outside, wiping grease from her hands. She'd spent the morning training a group of small business owners in security systems and documentation protocols. The mutual aid network was flourishing, bringing people together to share knowledge as much as resources. Mija, you seen the afternoon news? Sophia asked, looking up from her laptop. Maya smiled, settling into the chair beside her aunt. I did. Federal prosecutors are busy. The indictments had come down like spring rain, steady and cleansing. Commissioner Blake faced 25 years for racketeering and civil rights violations. His son Jason had turned state's evidence, providing details about years of orchestrated harassment against minority businesses. Blake's development empire was crumbling as investigators uncovered layers of fraud. They're talking about tens of millions in restitution, Maya said. Not just for us, for every family they pushed out. The Lord works in mysterious ways, Sophia hummed. Sometimes through a Navy logistics officer's precision. Maya chuckled, but her eyes remained serious. We're teaching people to protect themselves now. Rosa's running workshops on deed verification. David's showing folks how to document everything properly. Down in the warehouse, a group of teenagers laughed as they learned inventory management. The sound carried across the property, mixing with the gentle clanging of ship's bells from the harbor. Father Michael's van pulled up, packed with file boxes. He stepped out carrying stacks of legal documents. Since the night of the vigil, he'd been coordinating with attorneys, making sure every affected business got representation. Maya, he called, waving the papers. Just got word, they're expanding the restitution fund. More families coming forward every day. Maya nodded, satisfaction warming her chest. The story had spread far beyond Seattle, inspiring other communities to stand up against similar schemes. Her warehouse had become a symbol of resistance, but more importantly, it was becoming a center of learning. 3 times a week, she taught business security everything from legal documentation to creating proper audit trails. But she emphasized that the strongest defense was community organization. Your neighbors are your best alarm system, she'd tell them. Build those relationships. They're harder to break than any wall. A truck pulled up loaded with supplies for tomorrow's community workshop. Maya recognized the driver, a young woman whose family had lost their fishing business 10 years ago. They were using the restitution money to restart, this time with the network's support. Got those new security cameras you wanted, she called out, jumping down from the cab. My grandfather's old business blueprints too, we saved them. Sophia beamed. Bring them up here, dear. Let me see your family's history. Maya watched as the young woman carefully carried a folder of documents up to the porch. Her grandfather had worked the same waterfront before being forced out. Now his granddaughter was back, learning and teaching in equal measure. The afternoon light softened, painting everything in golden tones. Maya's phone buzzed with messages from other business owners sharing documentation tips, asking advice, coordinating workshops. The network grew stronger every day. Miss Maya, a teenager's voice called from the warehouse. Can you check these inventory logs? She stood, stretching muscles tired from good work. As she walked down the steps, she passed the new plaque David had mounted by the gate. Simple brass letters caught the light. We stood. The story had spread across the country. The Navy veteran who defended her family's waterfront business, the community that stood with her, the corrupt system that finally faced justice. But Maya knew the real story was in these quiet moments, teenagers learning inventory systems, elders sharing business wisdom, neighbors helping neighbors rebuild. A group of students gathered around a shipping manifest, pointing excitedly at something they'd discovered. Maya knelt beside them, smiling as they showed her how they'd identified a discrepancy in the tracking system. "See," one girl said proudly. "The numbers didn't match up. We found it." "That's what we do here," Maya replied, touching the manifest gently. "We pay attention. We document. We stand together." The sunset painted the sky in shades of pink and gold, casting long shadows across docks that had been in her family for 3 generations. Maya stood at the edge of the warehouse platform, watching people move across her property with purpose and belonging. She thought about the night of the attack, the fear Blake's forces had tried to plant, the destruction they'd brought. But fear couldn't anchor in water this deep with determination. Fire couldn't burn away generations of perseverance. Looking over the thriving waterfront, the new container, the bustling workshops, the people coming together to learn and share, Maya whispered words that were both victory and promise. They came with fire. We answered with the tide.